Welcome to Craft Shop. Brad here. Today I'm going to be doing a simple cutting board using 3 common species of hardwood. Should be a cool project. Alright, so this is the wood I'm going to be using for the project. My 3 different species of wood. This is maple, I've got a little bit of oak, and a small piece of walnut. I'm going to be using this probably as just like an accent strip. I've just had this laying around in the shop and I wanted to use it, so let's get started. Alright, so I've set my fence to the width of my pieces of walnut because these are the smallest pieces I'm working with. And what I'm going to be doing is cutting all of my boards into strips. So there are going to be a bunch of strips just like this. They're going to be flipped up on end and they're going to be glued together. So the width that I set my fence for this cut is going to be the thickness of my cutting board. Minus a little bit for planing and sanding, but this is in a nutshell going to be the thickness of my cutting board. Alright, so once you've got all your strips cut, you're going to kind of organize these into the pattern that you want your cutting board to be. You can see these have been ripped down and they are not completely square. Obviously they're a little bit taller than they are wide. So you want to flip your pieces up so that the cutting board is taller. Otherwise, when you send it through the planer or drum sander or you hand sand it, however you're going to do it, you don't want to get this too thin. So you want to start off as tall as you can. So now you're going to go ahead and assemble these into the pattern that you want to see in your cutting board. I think I'm going to keep my walnut on the inside. Alright, I think that's going to be the pattern I go for. It's just a striped pattern. There's good contrast in the middle because I put walnut right next to the maple here. So I think it looks pretty good. And let's go ahead and start the glue up.
Alright, now I'm just preparing for glue up. I'm putting some wax paper down so I don't ruin my feed out table. Alright, now I'm just laying all of the pieces down on their side and I am putting glue on them. I'm using Titebond Ultimate. If you don't know how much glue to use, just use all the glue that you have. And now you want to spread that out with your finger. You want to make sure every part of the surface is covered with glue. Alright, now just flipping them all back up the way they were and putting them together. There's the neighborhood fire engine. Alright, it's going up the edge. And it's time to put a little bit of pressure down. And a lot of times when you're gluing up strips like this, they want to arc. So a lot of times I put a big weight on top. I'm just putting down some wax paper just so it doesn't stick. And I am using our old anvil. And the more clamps the better, so I'm throwing a few on here. And that looks pretty good. Now you're gonna wanna let this sit for about 24 hours, so I just came in the next day. And the glue up was a success. It's pretty messy though, so I'm gonna send it through the planer. And no, this is not where I normally keep my planer. That's the only dust collection that I have in the shop though, and this is a very messy tool, so I have it hanging off the top of the table. Don't do this, it's pretty dangerous. And if you don't have a feed planer, you can also use a hand planer, or if you have enough patience, just hand sand it. Now I'm doing a little bit of hand planing to get off a couple high spots because I do have a chip in my planer blade. And it's looking pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and score up the ends. This would be a good time to have a crosscut sled, but I don't have one, so maybe you'll see me make one in a video soon. Alright, now over to the router table. I'm just using a round over bit. And if you watch the way I'm doing this, I'm just spinning the board in a circle, and I am not losing contact with the router bit. It's an easy way to get around the corners without having any chip outs. And sorry, my hand's in the way. I'm just drilling a hand hole with a Forstner bit. There it is. I'm just going to take that over to the router now and round it over just like the outsides. Alright, now it's all ready for sanding. I'm just using my random orbit sander. I'm starting at about 80 grit and moving to 120. Looking pretty good, all ready for the oil. And you want to keep adding oil until the wood no longer soaks it up. I think I did about 3 or 4 coats. And once you're done with oiling, you want to sand off any raised grain with a high grit sandpaper. I think I'm using about 320. Now I'm adding a little bit of butcher block conditioner. This adds a little bit of a wax feel to the outside of your cutting board, and it really helps protect the wood. So I'll just let that settle for a little bit, and then I'll wipe off whatever doesn't soak in. And now I'm just kind of buffing the top of the board a little bit with some paper towel. And that's the final piece. Pretty happy with the way this came out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.